Well, thank you for joining us. We're here in the home of, I'll be telling you whom shortly, but she has 18 years of experience in international cooperation, diplomacy and management, where in her residence, she represents Switzerland in Ghana. She's in the person of Her Excellency Simone Giga. She's been gracious enough to host us this morning as we get interactive. Simone, good morning.
Good morning, Benjamin.
I think it's only fitting we...
And kudos, really congratulations to you. You perfectly spelled my name, so not many people in Ghana can do that. Well
right,
done. Well
Simone
done.
Giga. I'm sure a lot of people struggle with the name.
Well, it's normal. I also struggle with Twi, so...
You know, at a point, I'll be finding out how many Twi words you've learned so far.
No, please
or
don't.
local language words
Please don't.
So far.
Don't.
Anyway, but it's going to be a very easy conversation. I'd like to start off with you telling us a bit about yourself. Who are you? I've mentioned that you have 18 years of experience in this space, but who is Simone Giga?
Yes, you said a lot about it already, and actually I guess by fall this year it will be 19 years of experience because I've added the year in Ghana now. And I've been in Ghana since August last year.
Okay.
It's my first ambassadorial position. Before that I was 4 years in Bern. I was heading the global program on migration and development at Switzerland's Agency for Development and Cooperation. And before that, actually I spent almost all of my career abroad. So I was in, if I counted correctly, in 7 different countries, mostly in the former Soviet Union, Eastern Europe. So now for the first time posted in Africa.
I was just about to ask that. So
exactly.
This is your very first time in Africa.
Exactly,
wow.
exactly.
And you have experience from the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
That goes
like post-Soviet Union. I'm
right.
not that old, so yeah.
So that's a very interesting background that you have, and of course we're glad to have you on the continent as well to share your wealth of experience. But what has your experience been, especially as this is your first time in Africa and you've come to Ghana? What has the experience been like? How have you found Ghana? Everything from food to drinks to the people. What has Ghana been like for you?
And I will speak for myself and my family, right? So because we're in this together. So I think Ghana is really a country that like sucks you in a good way. It has been very welcoming. Of course, there have been many news in my life, right? So it's a new continent, new country, new title, new job description, like new home, new school for the kids. So a lot of news. So it can be quite overwhelming. And I think it would be overwhelming for anyone, right? So it has been a struggle, but that is more like because of the entire constellation. But then, as I said, I think the fact that Ghana is like so open, and also I'm also talking about the diplomatic community. You know, I felt very much welcome, and through that, after less than a year, I can really say now I feel at home. And you said also, you know, talk about the food and the experiences. Yeah. So I really also tried to venture out, although it has been incredibly busy, and I wouldn't have to leave Accra because it's never a dull day here, I feel. I said, no, I really want to go out and see the country because every country is more than it, or almost every country, unless you're very small, is more than its capital, right? So I really tried to venture out, and when we venture out, I also tried to eat a bit like the local food and really experience Ghana to the fullest.
What have you tried, local food?
Oh God! So I hope I see now where it already starts with the
you can describe them.
Right. Of course, we fufu a lot. We have it once a month. So my family, the kids, of course, they love the fact that you can eat it with the hands. You know, just that for them is an experience. Then I like vache a lot.
Vache. Okay. The rice and beans mix.
Yeah. Right. I know what it is. It's just a then egusi, is that how you say it? It's like made out of pumpkin seeds.
Yes.
So I like that.
What do you have it with? Because it usually goes with eba or doughy dishes.
Yeah, something. I think I had it with banku. I'm not sure. I think I'm not sure. And then I had a lot of guinea fowl when I was in the north. Of course, jollof, not to forget. So yeah, I think I had quite a good impression of the
It's like you've had a swell time. You should, but since you've tried wache, maybe Ghana jollof should also be on your menu moving forward. But tell me, just because you brought it up, before we move on to the next question, since you're so busy, it just hit me. What is a regular day like for you?
Oh wow, you know what really is great about my job and what attracts me to it with all the stress is that there is no regular day, right? Like every day is different.
It comes with its own.
No, and sometimes also, you know, you plan and then like something comes in between, or like you know, or you're called to parliament, or you have to see a minister. So these things are not plannable, right? They come at the last minute. Or headquarter asks you, you know, we want you to see this and that person, to talk on this and that. So it's not really plannable, but a lot of my normal day is really about meeting people, getting to know the country, of course also learning about the country, and then because at one point I'm expected to report back to my headquarters, because whatever like I report back will then be part of our like strategy towards Sub-Saharan Africa. So, but a lot of interactions, a lot of really getting to know the country. And then when I say interactions, it's really at all levels. So it's, of course, government is the main counterpart, but then also with the private sector, with civil society, with interesting persons in Ghana.
I also know you've traveled a lot. The last time we had an interaction, you know, before this interaction, you told me you had been to 10 out of our 16 regions. Have you added to that number yet? Tell us, what has the experience been like as you've gone around?
I haven't added to that number yet, but you know what? I think it was very good that I forced myself to go out there, because when you have a lot to do, it's always hard to take time and really say, no, I go on that trip no matter what. Because what I learned about Ghana is that, you know, you travel in one direction and you get like one Ghana, right? We went to the Volta region, and there you have like the lush, you know, forest, jungle, and you feel like, oh, I'm in a different Ghana, right? Then you travel west and you have, of course, the historic sites, you have the beaches, and you're like, oh, that's so different. Then I went north, and you have like savannah, and also the food is different. Yeah. The people look different, you know, the clothes they wear are different, the traditions are different. So for me, it was really a kind of an eye-opening experience to say like, wow, you know, there are so many little Ghanas in the bigger Ghana, and the fact that that you know you exist as a nation, and all this diversity is contained in one, that I find like really, really impressive. And
Switzerland itself has its own diversity in different ways, from flora, fauna to the population itself.
Absolutely.
And maybe some other time we'll get into the details of that. But looking at our bilateral relations, Ghana, Switzerland. In fact, on the very day of Ghana's independence, Switzerland, you know, acknowledged that a country called Ghana existed. I think the first missionaries, the Basel missionaries, came to our shores in 1828, thereabouts. And
that's the figure I have, yes.
Exactly. And since then, there has been some sort of relationship between Switzerland and Ghana. We'll talk about the trade end, but what does this really mean, this relationship, Switzerland and Ghana? For which reason you're even present in the country?
You know, so you just mentioned it, 1828, so almost 200 years, right? So it has been a very long relationship. And what I've learned in my first months here, that I believe it has been really a very positive and strong relationship. So all really the reactions I get when I mention the Basel missionaries are like outright positive. So there's a lot of goodwill from the Ghanaian side towards Switzerland, and I hope, of course, that we can reciprocate that goodwill. You know, then that the relations have just grown in terms of the scope of what Switzerland does here in the country. So you mentioned we basically recognized Ghana on the day of independence, and then 3 years later, in 1960, we opened a full-fledged embassy. And then since then, especially in the last few years, we have really broadened our cooperation with Ghana. So political relationships, I think, are at a very good level. Your president, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, visited Switzerland in 2020 on a state visit, and it was actually only the third sub-Saharan president, that was given that honor. So that just speaks of how close our relationships are. And then our federal councillor, Sionetta Somauga, at that point in time, she came to Ghana the year after, and we signed a bilateral cooperation agreement. We signed a climate protection agreement. So right now, at this moment in time, we really have so many different activities. So I said, we have political relations, we have economic trade relations. You said we would talk about that. We have the climate protection agreement, which, by the way, is really a first in the world. So Ghana and Switzerland are the first two countries that concluded a climate agreement under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement.
Right.
And that's really something that I believe also speaks to the strength of our relations. And then,
in fact, our president heads the climate vulnerable group.
Absolutely,
group of countries.
Absolutely. And
I remember last year he represented us in the Netherlands at an event where I was, and that really came to the fore. And
you have brilliant experts here in Ghana. So my colleagues, like the technical experts, when I talk to them, and I always ask, why Ghana? Why? And they're all excited. They said, well, because they have really good people, at the technical level, in the ministries, in the agencies. So the cooperation at the working level is very, very good.
I have a sweet tooth. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether you do. Last time I came, we had chocolate. And
oh la la! We have to.
I know about 47% of the cocoa used for chocolate in Switzerland comes from Ghana. On that plane, what has the relationship been like, and what, in the future, could Ghana look forward to?
It's even more. The figure I have is more than 60%.
I see.
And Switzerland sources most of its cocoa from Ghana because it's of very good quality, and I hope that doesn't get me in trouble with any other neighboring countries. But Ghana is known.
I think that is a well-known. It's
exactly,
a global fact.
It's a global. Okay, it's a global fact, right? So, so we source a lot of our cocoa from Ghana, and I always say our world-renowned chocolate is only what it is thanks to the Ghanaian cocoa. Well, not only, but it's a very important ingredient. So what we try to do, we have in Switzerland a so-called a Swiss platform on sustainable cocoa. It has more than 80 members, and it's really like a multi-stakeholder platform. You have civil society, you have the private sector cocoa producers, you have government entities in there. And we have actually established a dialogue here with the Cocoa Bot, but then also with, we try to more and more integrate integrate also civil society, private sector here into the dialogue. And through our cooperation program, we really try to finance programs that are tailor-made to the situation in Ghana, that are in line with Ghana's needs. And they can be, there's a disease called, and I hope I get it right, the swollen shoot disease that affects
swollen shoot disease.
Swollen shoot
cocoa
disease,
pods,
exactly.
Right.
So, Switzerland, together with Ghana and the Creek at Cocoa Bot, they try to develop new measures on how to detect and treat that disease. Or we have also activities trying to prevent child labor. Then we have initiatives in agroforestry, how to make cocoa production more sustainable. So a lot of cooperation, and I think what is very important is that we have these this kind of, I don't know how you say it in English, eye to eye, or arm's length relationship, and we start with the dialogue, and we really try to see what Ghana needs in that area, and what is the expertise we can provide.
At the tail end, I would like to find out, much later, about what you look forward to in respect of that. But in terms of economic cooperation, again, long-standing. If I recall, in 2020, the trade between the two countries, at least from Ghana's end, was about 2.9 billion. And that was about 97% of the trade. And it was more focused on gold.
Yeah.
From your end, we get pharmaceuticals, machinery, and all of that. Now that you're here in Ghana, I'm sure there's a lot more that we can do. What are you looking at on the economic plane?
It's, as you said, like Ghana is actually Switzerland's number 2 or 3 trading partner in sub-Saharan Africa, depending on the year you look at. And as you said, it's mostly gold, because the gold goes actually to Switzerland, and Switzerland refines 2/3 of all the gold in the world, right? So that's in a way not a natural process. It goes to Switzerland, it's refined, and then it's exported from Switzerland. But when you come here, and we have about 50 Swiss companies, that set up their shop here in Ghana, and there are new ones coming also, and they're like, you mentioned it, in the pharmaceutical industry, of course. You have Nestle, everybody knows Nestle, they're producing here in Ghana. We have the chemical industry, we have some companies, smaller ones, in mining, in oil and gas. So it's really very diverse, and that's also what I like. Looking for, when I came here, so before August last year, I really thought, Ghana, thanks to its stability, macroeconomic stability, but also political stability, would actually be a very good entry points for companies, right, willing to invest in Africa. So we had big plans on attracting more investments from Switzerland. And then, like August, the situation was not really very favorable. So we really hope that now with the forthcoming IMF agreement, it will stabilize again. And then we can really talk about, bringing more investments in the country. But so far we have more been probably busy, with I wouldn't say calming, but making sure that the investors that are now in Ghana, the Swiss investors, that they can cope with the situation in an adequate manner.
Right, so you just made mention of the IMF, and you know where Ghana is now. We're seeking a bailout, we're seeking an approval of our program. But in terms of Switzerland, one of the biggest economies across the world, and you have quite a bit of a history, small country, but you've made waves across the world. On the economic front, what do you think are the lessons Ghana could learn from Switzerland? So maybe, of course, we don't end up at the doorstep of the IMF one more time.
I don't know whether it's about lessons to be learned and all that. I'm not here as a teacher, but what I can tell you is a bit about the elements of what I call like the Swiss success model, and how we developed and how we somehow maintained that stability over quite some time. And I believe they're like economic and political ingredients to that. So on the economic side, when we think back, like 200 years ago, Switzerland was a poor country. People were like emigrating, they were like, there was famine, So we have a lot of emigration. And then at one point there came like the turnaround, and it had a lot to do with infrastructure, like investment in infrastructure. And then actually what a lot of people don't know, like the Swiss banking system, was in a way a side product of like the fact that Switzerland needed money to build the railways, so they established like the Swiss banks, right? So that was
which are world famous.
Well, which are world famous, exactly. So, but it was a byproduct of the infrastructure and like the connectivity. Since we are very mountainous, it was extremely important that we could get to all and very diverse, that we could connect all the parts of Switzerland. So that was like in a way, the precondition for development. And then later, I think. On the economic side, what is very special about Switzerland is that we have quite liberal framework conditions, so that I would call it like a soft touch approach by the government, and we leave a lot actually to the private sector, to develop, to thrive, they know best. So, and at the same time, we have a very close cooperation between the public and the private sector. And one case in point is, for instance, our vocational education system that we call dual, right? And that actually a lot of countries are interested in, where you don't just get a theoretical education, but actually you spend 2 to 3 days of your week as a trainee, you spend in an enterprise and you learn your trade, your profession on the job with the mentor.
So there's a technical end to it.
Absolutely, and very close. We also have very close cooperation between public and private sector when it comes to research and development, investing in innovation. So all this is really part of the package. And then I also said, I believe a large part of the story is actually political in nature. So it's our political system that, of course, I'm Swiss and I'm the ambassador. I think it's a tremendous system, but it is so unique, and it's so geared towards Switzerland's needs. So we do have parliamentary democracy, but then we also have direct democracy, which means that citizens in Switzerland, like 4 times a year, every 3 months, they can vote of issues of concern.
4 times a year.
4 times a year.
So every
exactly.
3 months.
Every 3 months, if I'm not completely mistaken. Yes, but it's frequent. So you go and you vote, and that of course constrains a bit the freedom of the parliamentarians, and there's always an additional level of accountability if you want so, because if you're not very happy with what your politicians do, you can actually overturn part of that, right? And then we also have a very decentralized political system. So we are a federation, and then we also give a lot of power to our municipalities. And we have a brilliant principle that is called subsidiarity. And it means that you try to solve a problem at the lowest possible level.
So don't let it escalate. If you can solve it at the lowest level,
and then you go to the next level, like I always say, like municipal waste management, right? It's municipal. So how we solve it, we transfer the money to the municipality, they solve the issue. Then there's other things like education, right? You cannot have like 2,500 municipalities and each with their own education system. So education is actually managed at the regional/cantonal level, right? And then there are issues like national security, foreign policy, all that. Again, doesn't make sense to have that at every canton, so we have it at the national level.
Quite an interesting setup, and we've had our own stints with decentralization and all of that. And like you mentioned, it's interesting you make the point. 200 years ago, Switzerland wasn't what we know it now. We're only 66 years. There's a lot more we wish we could have done, but we know that it's a gradual process as well, and we'll definitely get there. But this being your first year in Ghana, what has the relationship been like with other members of the diplomatic corps? In fact, you have a caucus. What has your experience been like with your brothers and sisters, your colleagues who are also representing their own countries in Ghana?
I think that was really part of that positive experience that I mentioned in the beginning. And, especially when you're a first-time ambassador, you don't really know the ropes yet. So you need a lot of advice and support from your colleagues, and that has been completely forthcoming. And of course, I really appreciate the fact that we have so many female ambassadors in Ghana. There's a Women in Diplomacy Index, and Ghana was actually among the top 10 countries, which means if you look at the percentage of female ambassadors to the overall number of ambassadors, so Ghana, I think, is even top 5, right? So there's a lot of female peers here from whom I can learn, and I never feel left alone. So if I have an issue that I cannot solve, I know exactly whom to contact, and I know this person will be helping me in solving the issue. So no, I mean, the diplomatic community is really, I think Ghana attracts good people, maybe we can put it like that.
We're good to hear that. But since you're talking about women, let me just sneak in this bit. I know women's empowerment is something that you're passionate about. In fact, for the first time, we have a head of mission being you as a woman. Your deputy head is also a woman. The head of Chancery is a woman. First time that we're having such a situation. What does this mean to you, and what more would you like to see on that front? Not just from the Swiss context, but from what you've seen so far in Ghana as well?
You know, it's actually quite a lucky coincidence because I didn't select the people, right? So, but I have to say also for Switzerland, it's unfortunately still quite unique to have such a setup, you know, an all-female management team. But I'm of course happy, and I hope we can prove that, you know, we can do the job as good as any man, or maybe even better. We will see. We will judge that after like 4 years. But of course, I would like to see more of that, right? And it doesn't have to be all females. I think what the research shows is that diverse teams are the best, right? But we had so many all-male teams in the past, so it's fine from time to time to have also an all-female team. And I'm really passionate about women empowerment because, and also when I travel, when I go out, I always try to also meet with women. You know, I do like a special outreach to get to know women, and there are so many smart, intelligent, powerful women in this country, but they are not necessarily seen, right? Or not, well, they are seen, but not collectively, right? So maybe something where, you know, again, it's not up to me, but something where I may want to make a contribution is really in trying to facilitate, you know, different women from different walks of life, you know, connecting and getting together and growing stronger through that. So that's something I'm passionate about. Of course, my contribution will be minor, but if I can serve as a host, as a facilitator, I'm very happy to do that.
So I know that you follow the creative space a lot in Ghana. I've been watching your Twitter post. I've seen that you've engaged quite a number of people. You've had an encounter with Black Sheriff, and you even go into sports. You were interacting with our goalkeeper, Lawrence Atizigi, and enjoying Kofi Brookman. That's what we call it, the roasted plantain with groundnuts. I found that hilarious.
Post, yes.
Anyway, so tell us how you enjoyed that meal.
Yeah.
Tell us about your engagements with the creatives and others in Ghana. And maybe, what's your taste in music? Which artists have you listened to in Ghana?
Okay, good. Oh, a lot of questions. So, you know, why do I meet with people, again, like from different backgrounds, different walks of life? I think that's, you know, like, again, I wanna get to know the real Ghana in its diversity, and also meet, like, of course, my first counterpart is government, but then I learned a lot, really, meeting with these people. When you talk about musical taste, so with Black Sheriff, it was really like me reaching out, because I felt there was something very raw in his music, and he was speaking from his soul, right? So I wanted also to get to know him, not only because I like the music, but just the fact that he's from Konongo Zongo, he's like Muslim minority, and then what he went through in his life, I thought he really has a story to tell, right? And I felt also that he's someone who has a kind of a social consciousness. He wants to do something for his country. So that's, you know, for me it's always, and also in my taste in music, I like any type of music, you know. I couldn't tell you, you know, I'm into hip hop or Afro beats or whatever, but then I guess in the different genres, then I have some artists I connect to, and I hope, of course, to meet more in the future. Then with Ziggy, Ziggy is, of course, I don't know if you know, but he's a superstar in Switzerland, right? So like when I went back over Easter holidays, and then my friends in Switzerland saw on Twitter that I met Ziggy, they were like so jealous. They said, I can't believe that you're meeting him, and he gave me the signed jersey, and so with him it was really, we have that relationship. He plays in a club that is like 20 minutes from my hometown, right? So it's like even more than just Switzerland, it's like next door, right? So we could exchange on life in Ghana, life in Switzerland, food. That's how we ended up at the joint, basically. We were talking about food and what Swiss food he enjoys and what Ghanaian food I enjoy. And,
did you enjoy the Kofi Brookman?
And we realized that I haven't had roasted plantain yet, you know.
Right.
And I liked it, especially with the peanuts on top. So the combination was really good. Yeah.
Awesome. So it's been pretty interesting, this conversation. But just to cap it off, what next can we expect from Simone Giga? No one knows how long your stay in Ghana is going to be. I'm sure after that you'll still have many more experiences, hopefully on the African continent, so you get to know more about us. But what can we expect from you, and what legacy would you like to leave behind when that time comes for you to knock off, leave Ghana?
Again, I don't think it's about legacy and about me. It's about Switzerland, right? I'm representing my country. Of course, I try to give it my personal touch. So it's all about, like, first of all, maintaining the excellent relations we have with Ghana, and then strengthening them. And I think my personal touch is really, you know, to also increase these people-to-people contacts, you know, to make our two countries connect at that level. And then, like, the topics, the issues I'm passionate about, right? So I really want to, like, leave maybe a trace or like a footprint, you know, in women's environment, women's empowerment. Then I'm also passionate about environmental protection, recycling. We do a lot here at the embassy. We work with different, like, youth groups. And again, I see the embassy more as a connector, like bringing different strands, groups, movements together. That's also then also the link with climate protection. You know, if you really can move that agreement forward and say, like, you know, Ghana, Switzerland together, champions in fighting climate change, that's wonderful. And then also, you know, because I'm really attracted to the creative sphere, so we were also thinking about, like, bringing women empowerment together with, like, giving it a creative angle, and maybe also, like, supporting female musicians, artists, like, let them network among each other. These are a bit like the highlights maybe that I would like to set in my years to come. Well,
all the best with that. More power to your elbow. Environmental issues are crucial in Ghana. There's also women's empowerment, and there's a lot more that we all project can be done in Parliament, in governance, in so many areas. So we wish you the best on that journey. Simone Giga, you speak French, and yes, German is your first language.
German is my first language.
So I think it's only fitting, as we cap off the conversation. Simone Giga, merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup à vous. Ah, danke schön. Wow.
I saved that for last. Thank you very much for joining us for this conversation with Her Excellency, the Swiss Ambassador to Ghana, Simone Giga.